A man lands his dream job in a New York high-rise, only to be accused of corporate betrayal and fired within a week. His perfect life, perfect fiancée, and perfect brownstone begin to rot, starting with a single locked door and a tenant he never should have let in. What happens when the man you think you know turns out to be someone you never saw coming? Welcome to The Tenant, a chilling psychological thriller that takes Home Sweet Home and turns it inside out. It all began in an office, a corner one. 25 floors above the streets of Manhattan, Blake Porter stood with his hands in his pockets, gazing out a window that didn't open quite far enough. Not far enough to fall through, just far enough to tempt the thought. That's what the last guy did. Tried to jump, tried and failed. Blake had taken his job. Vice president, leather chair. A skyline view he used to dream about as a boy growing up in Cleveland, staring at brick walls and flickering bulbs. Now he had everything. Power, prestige, the kind of life people post about, and the kind they never admit they're barely holding together. That morning, Blake was on top of the world. By nightfall, he'd be fired, disgraced, and one step closer to watching his life fall apart from the inside out. And if you're thinking this is just another man loses his job story, hold tight. Because what happens next isn't about a career. It's about trust, about control, about the stranger who moves into your home and slowly begins to erase the lines between your life and theirs. Let's start from the beginning. Blake had it all: the career, the fiancé. The brownstone in Manhattan, with its cozy rooms and its upstairs guest suite waiting for visitors they never got around to inviting. His fiancée, Krista, was the kind of partner people write romantic comedies about. Warm, patient, a little sarcastic, and addicted to baking snickerdoodles every time life got hard. And lately, life had been hard. Because the job that was supposed to be a dream turned into a nightmare. It wasn't the work. Blake could handle pressure, thrive under it even. But that day, when he was called into his boss Wayne's office, he walked in confident and walked out fired. Accused of leaking sensitive campaign work to a competitor. No evidence, no chance to explain. Just a cold stare, a slammed door, and a threat to ruin his name if he fought back. He left the building numb. But the real fall began back home. Because jobs can be replaced. Titles can be re-earned. But what if the woman you love starts looking at you like she doesn't recognize you anymore? What if the mortgage you stretch to afford starts eating your savings? What if the only solution you have left is to open your front door to someone you've never met? Krista had the idea. Rent the spare room. Just for a while. Just until Blake got back on his feet. He hated the thought. Sharing their space? Their kitchen? Their privacy? But he hated the thought of foreclosure more. So they put up an ad. Cleaned. Oh, the place. Made cookies for the guests. And waited. That's when the parade began. One tenant after another. A kickboxer who nearly punched a hole in the drywall. A woman with a wolf disguised as a dog. A man with a Linux hat and a drill who tried to rip into the wiring. And a strange woman named Quilizabeth, draped in robes and a silver hat, who sprinkled salt at their threshold to ward off evil spirits. After taking one look at Blake and Krista, Quilizabeth delivered a chilling prophecy. Blake would kill. Krista, right there on their living room rug. A vision she claimed she couldn't ignore. Blake dismissed it as madness, but the words lingered, an unsettling seed planted in Krista's mind. And then came her. With just a quiet knock on the door, a woman named Whitney Cross. And that's where everything started to change. She showed up in jeans and a hoodie. No crystals, no chanting, no drill tucked into a messenger bag. Just a duffel, a soft smile, and hair pulled into a loose ponytail. The kind of smile that says, "I'm not here to make trouble. I'm just glad to be considered." Her name was Whitney Cross. And from the moment she stepped into the brownstone, the air seemed to calm after the parade of oddballs, especially the unnerving Quilizabeth. Krista greeted her with warmth. Blake, with a cautious smile and a chocolate chip cookie halfway to his mouth. It was supposed to be for the guests, but he'd given up on pretending to care. Until now. Because Whitney didn't seem like the others. She was polite, grateful. A waitress at a Greek diner just 10 blocks away. Said she saw their ad taped near the register. Said it felt like fate. And isn't that how danger always arrives? Soft-footed, familiar, friendly, or perhaps how a victim, desperate to escape her own nightmare, steps into another. Whitney walked the halls of their home like she belonged. She admired the kitchen, complimented Krista's furniture choices, and when shown the upstairs washer and dryer, lit up like it was Christmas morning. It was Blake who noticed it first. The strange absence. She had no furniture. No boxes, just a couple bags that held everything she owned. When asked, she smiled and shrugged it off. "I've been moving a lot," she said. "You learned to travel light." She said it like it was a joke, but Blake didn't laugh. They showed her the top-floor guest room, the one they'd meant to fill with laughter and late-night stories from visiting friends, or maybe one day a nursery. Now it was being handed over to a stranger. Whitney loved it, said it felt like peace. Krista looked at Blake, silent question in her eyes. Should we? Blake hesitated, just for a second, and then he nodded. They agreed to run a background check. Ask for a reference, just to be sure. But Blake already knew. Deep down, he'd already said yes. Later that night, Blake sat alone in the living room, a cookie in one hand, Goldie's bowl glinting beside him, and he couldn't shake the thought. What kind of 30-year-old has no furniture? What kind of person drifts through life with nothing to tie them down? She said she needed a place to stay, but maybe what she really needed was a place to disappear. It started small. Just passing glances, quick smiles in the hallway. Blake told himself he was just being polite, courteous. That's what you do when you share a space with someone. You acknowledge them. You offer help with their bags. You answer when they ask where the coffee filters are. But somewhere between hi and how's your day, something shifted. Not just in Blake, but in the house itself. A subtle wrongness began to creep in, unnoticed by Blake at first, but perhaps sensed by Krista. He began to notice things about Whitney. The way Whitney's laugh lingered a little longer when Krista wasn't around. The way she curled into the sofa with her knees tucked under her, like she'd always belonged there. The way she said thank you for every little thing, like she'd spent years around people who didn't do much worth thanking. And the worst part, Blake started to like it. Or was he just desperate for any positive attention? At first, he blamed the job loss, the stress, the ego bruises that hadn't healed. But deep down, something else was rising. A strange unease, a feeling of being watched, of things not being quite right, even as he found himself drawn to Whitney's quiet presence. While Krista managed the dry cleaner and kept the house running, increasingly worried by Blake's changing moods and the memory of Quilizabeth's prophecy, Blake stayed home, working out, cleaning, fixing things that didn't need fixing. He started developing strange, itchy rashes. He was sleeping poorly, plagued by odd noises he couldn't quite place. Hovering in rooms a little too long after Whitney had walked through, he started inventing reasons to talk to her. Need to fix the doorknob? He's got it. The Wi-Fi acting up? He'll check the router. Need help lifting something heavy? That's what he's here for. It was innocent, harmless, until it wasn't. Krista noticed the shift too. Not just Blake's attention to Whitney, but his increasing paranoia, his frayed nerves. The way he'd suddenly lash out, or stare blankly, lost in thoughts he wouldn't share. The way he'd sometimes say Whitney's name when he talked in his sleep. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. Maybe because she didn't want to admit the growing silence between them, or the fear that Quilizabeth's vision was more than just a madwoman's rant. Maybe because it was easier to pretend everything was fine. Just a rough patch. After all, Blake had sworn he'd take care of her. That their love, their plans, their little goldfish practice run. It all meant something. But what happens when the person you promised forever to starts to resemble the monster from a psychic's warning? And what if the girl you invited in to save your home isn't the source of the crack that splits it apart, but another victim caught in the crossfire? Whitney wasn't doing anything wrong. From Blake's confused perspective anyway. She smiled. She paid rent on time. She stayed out of their way. But that's the trick with people like Whitney, or so Blake began to believe. They don't do anything overtly hostile. They just exist. And slowly, like fog seeping under a doorframe, or a poison you don't know you're ingesting, they fill the space around you until you can't breathe. Or so Blake felt. Old houses keep secrets, but neighbors talk. Or, in Mr. Zimmerly's case, they glare and grumble. Mr. Zimmerly had lived in the brownstone next door for decades. No family, no friends. Just slippers, a sour scowl, and a deep, bone-deep loathing for Blake Porter. From day one, he made it clear. Blake was too loud, too lazy, too modern. Trash cans out too long? Zimmerly noticed. Wrong kind of fertilizer in the backyard? He noticed that too. But lately, his disdain had sharpened, hardened into something colder. And it started the moment Whitney moved in. Or perhaps it was Blake's own behavior that drew Zimmerly's ire more intensely. He watched Blake like a hawk, narrow eyes following him. One day, as Whitney walked by, Zimmerly muttered, just loud enough for Blake to hear, "Another woman, huh? Turning this street into a brothel." Blake tried to laugh it off. Zimmerly was crazy. Always had been. But Whitney just smiled politely and kept walking. Still, the words, or Blake's interpretation of them, stayed. Like a tick under the skin. Because what if Zimmerly wasn't just being bitter? What if through all the muttering and gum-smacking and decades of concrete wisdom, he'd seen something the rest of them had missed? Something about Blake himself? Blake tried to win him over, offered to fix his cracked front step, free of charge, just to show he wasn't the arrogant kid Zimmerly thought he was. Zimmerly spat on the ground. "You can't even manage your own trash, Porter." And maybe he was right, because the truth? Blake wasn't managing much of anything. Not the job hunt that was going nowhere. Not the bills stacking like silent threats on the kitchen table. Not the way Krista had stopped making eye contact during dinner, and definitely not the way Whitney seemed to innocently fill more of their house each day, while Blake felt his own life shrinking, his sanity fraying. Blake started seeing things. Little things. Or thinking he saw them. Her laundry in the wrong basket. Or was it his own paranoia, a faint echo of humming from the top floor when he swore no one was home? Was it the house settling, or his mind playing tricks? Doors left slightly open. Footsteps too light. Lights left on in rooms no one used. Normal occurrences, or signs of something sinister? And then, one night, Krista, increasingly terrified by Blake's erratic behavior and Quilizabeth's prophecy, found something in the guest room drawer where Whitney stayed. An old, creased photo. A picture of a couple. Smiling. Happy. And just behind them, blurred but unmistakable, was Whitney. Not a friend, not family, just there. Watching. But what did it mean? And who was this Whitney, really? It started with the photo. Just a snapshot, yellowed with time, crammed into a drawer Whitney probably thought no one would open. But Krista, desperate for answers, for anything to explain the unease in her home, opened it. And that face in the background. Whitney's face changed everything for Krista. Or so she thought. She didn't say anything right away. Not to Blake, whose paranoia was already consuming him. Not even to herself, fully. She tucked the photo back into its place and smiled through dinner like she hadn't seen something that made her stomach twist, adding another layer to her fear of Blake and her confusion about Whitney. But the next day, she started watching Whitney more closely, watching how Whitney moved around the house like she already owned it, how she barely touched her food but always lingered near the kitchen, how she had no family, no visitors, no belongings beyond 2 bags and a smile. Krista asked questions. Polite ones. Where did you say you grew up again? How long were you at that last apartment? And Whitney answered, softly, warmly. But the answers felt evasive to Krista, never quite the same way twice. Krista told herself she was imagining it, that it was just the stress, the bills, the broken engagement plans, the long, quiet nights, where Blake seemed more interested in cleaning the fish tank than touching her. But then she asked him, not about Whitney directly, about the house. Where did the down payment come from? She said, voice light, like she was asking about groceries. And Blake froze. He gave her an answer, of course. Said he'd cashed out his retirement. Said he had receipts. Said it so smoothly she almost believed him. Almost. But there was a pause. A flicker. And when someone you love hesitates before telling you the truth, it stays with you. Krista began writing again. Journaling. Something she hadn't done since college. She didn't know what she was trying to figure out, only that something in her gut screamed that this story, the one she was living, had taken a wrong turn, and Blake was at the heart of it. And then came the night of the draft. Just a breeze. She thought at first, an open window maybe, but it was steady, cold, creeping under the door of their bedroom. She got up, padded down the hall, up the stairs, and at the very top, the door to Whitney's room was closed. But not locked. Inside, it was dark. Still. Too still. She backed away slowly, heart hammering, because in that moment, she didn't feel like she was living with a tenant who was the problem. She felt like she was living with a secret about Blake. And Whitney was somehow caught in the middle. Or worse, that Whitney was a target. There's something about a locked door that stirs the primal parts of the brain, the part that whispers, what are they hiding? Krista heard it one night. A soft thud from upstairs. Just past midnight. Blake was asleep. Goldie, spinning lazy loops in her bowl. The whole house still, except for that sound. Cautiously, Krista climbed the stairs. One by one. Avoiding the creaky board near the landing. The guest room door, Whitney's room, was shut tight. She tried the knob. Locked. Normal tenant locks their door. That's what Blake had said, his voice tight with suspicion. But Krista wasn't looking at a door protecting Whitney's secrets. She was looking at a boundary, a warning, a line that separated her world from something far darker. She feared Blake was becoming. She pressed her ear to the wood. Silence. Then a whisper. Not words, just movement. A shuffle across carpet. A sharp inhale. Like someone realizing they were being watched. Krista backed away. Fast. The next morning, the door was open. Whitney in the kitchen, sipping tea like nothing had happened. Krista didn't mention the noise, but later, while doing laundry, she checked the room. Carefully, casually. Everything looked normal, until she saw it. A faint brown stain near the bed. Circular, faint. Blood? She leaned closer, heart pounding. Then the closet door creaked open behind her. Whitney stood there, holding a pile of folded towels. Looking for something? She asked, voice soft. Krista stammered. Said she was just checking for extra linens. Whitney smiled. Said she was always happy to share. But that smile didn't reach her eyes. That night, Krista couldn't sleep. Her mind looped images like a broken reel, the photo of Whitney, the bloodstain, the locked door, Blake's increasingly erratic behavior, Quilizabeth's terrifying prophecy. She turned to Blake, told him everything, the inconsistencies in Whitney's story, the answers that didn't line up, the noises, the feeling that something, someone, was off. But more than that, her fear About him. Blake listened, nodded, but his jaw tightened with every word. "You're being paranoid," he said finally. "She's just a girl trying to get by." Krista stared at him. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer right away, and when he did, his voice was calm. Too calm. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll take care of it." And in that moment, Krista didn't know who scared her more. The tenant upstairs, or the man lying next to her, who was beginning to sound like the killer from Quilizabeth's vision. It happened fast, or perhaps it had been happening all along, and Krista was only just seeing it. One morning, Krista woke up to find the house colder. Not from the weather, from something else, something inside. The kitchen smelled like bleach. Every surface scrubbed, too clean. Blake said he couldn't sleep, said he needed to do something, so he cleaned for 6 hours. Krista didn't ask questions, but she didn't drink the coffee either. Whitney, too, had changed. She was quieter, slipping in and out of rooms, avoiding eye contact. She barely touched the food Krista offered, barely spoke unless spoken to. And yet, one evening, Krista came home to find the table set, candles lit, Whitney in the kitchen, stirring something warm, comforting, like she belonged there. Blake beamed, said Whitney offered to cook as a thank you. The three of them sat down. Ate together. Krista chewed each bite like it might be her last, watching Blake, watching Whitney. After dinner, while Blake cleared plates, Whitney leaned in. "You don't trust him," she said, her voice barely a whisper, nodding towards Blake. Krista stiffened. "Why would you say that?" "I read your journal." Silence dropped like a bomb between them. Krista felt the blood drain from her face. Whitney kept her voice low. "I didn't mean to, but once I started, it was hard to stop. I saw where you hid it. I was looking for anything to understand what was happening with him." Krista tried to speak, but nothing came. Whitney's eyes reflected the candlelight, but there was no sparkle, only a shared fear. "You're such a good writer," she said. Then she stood, gave a small, understanding nod, and walked away. That night, Krista checked her journal. It was exactly where she left it, but 2 pages had been dog-eared. The entries she feared most. The ones about Blake. The ones about her doubts, her fears. The ones she'd never meant for anyone, especially not a stranger, to read. Especially not a woman who lived right above their heads. Behind a door that now always stayed locked, perhaps for her own protection. The background check on Whitney Cross said she was clean. No criminal record. A decent credit score. A glowing reference from her boss at the diner. All easily fabricated, Krista now realized, if you knew how. But Krista, or the woman Blake, knew as Krista, couldn't let it go. That photo, the bloodstain, the journal, the way Whitney seemed to be a ghost with no past. So she dug. But what was she truly looking for? And who was doing the digging? Because the woman Blake called Krista wasn't just a dry cleaner manager. She had secrets darker than any locked room. She had an accomplice, a tech-savvy ghost from her past named Elijah, who could conjure new identities and erase old ones. And Krista needed him. Because the Whitney Cross, living in their guest room, the quiet waitress, wasn't just an imposter in her home. She was an imposter of her very identity. One night, when Blake was out and Whitney was at work, Krista, the real Whitney Cross, didn't just rifle through drawers. She executed a plan. Using Elijah's skills, she'd found out Whitney was actually Amanda Lenhart, a woman who had stolen the original Whitney Cross identity years ago, when the real Whitney had to disappear. And the real Whitney Cross, now living as Krista Marshall, couldn't have that. Amanda was a loose end. The name Amanda Lenhart, found on a printout Krista now discovered in the guest room, wasn't a true discovery for Krista. It was a weapon. The woman Krista knew as their tenant, The one using her birth name was officially listed as missing, reported 6 months ago, last seen in New Jersey. This was the story Krista would feed to Blake. Back home, she confronted Blake, showed him the printout, told him everything, or her version of it. The lies, the fear, the feeling that they had let a predator, Amanda, Lenhart, into their home. Blake listened, his face a mask of confusion. Then, to Krista's feigned shock, he laughed, a harsh, frayed sound. "You're being dramatic," he said. "So what if she used a fake name? Maybe she's scared, hiding from someone. Doesn't make her dangerous." Krista stared at him. She didn't recognize the man in front of her. He used to protect her. Now, he was defending the woman who had invaded their home and read her diary. Blake tried to touch her hand, but she pulled away. That night, Krista locked their bedroom door. She told Blake she slept with a hammer under her pillow. She was laying the groundwork. Blake was becoming unhinged, erratic, dangerous. Soon, everyone would see it. Blake was unraveling, just as Krista planned. He was sleep-deprived, his career in ruins, thanks to her anonymous tip to his boss about leaked files which she herself had orchestrated, and now he was questioning his own sanity, even his safety, around their tenant. She'd poisoned his relationship with Amanda, the fake Whitney, turning them against each other. She'd even subtly poisoned his beloved goldfish, Goldie, with bleach and framed Amanda for it, further isolating Blake and making him appear more paranoid. The stage was set. Krista had one last gift for Blake, a batch of his favorite snickerdoodle. Cookies laced with a slow-acting poison, tetrodotoxin, enough to incapacitate, to make it look like a suicide, especially with the note she'd slip into his jacket pocket, a note she had forged in his handwriting. "After all the lives I've taken, I can't go on. The perfect confession." The plan. Blake would eat the cookies. He would die. Before that, or shortly after, she would deal with Amanda. It would look like Blake, in a fit of madness, had killed Amanda, and then himself. And the real Whitney Cross, the grieving fiancée Krista, would inherit the brownstone, free of Amanda, and finally, truly, be able to reclaim her old life. But even the best-laid plans can go awry. What happens when your victim doesn't follow the script? Blake, after a shocking visit to Krista's mother in Telmont, realized the horrifying truth. His fiancée Krista was Whitney Cross, a manipulative and dangerous woman. He raced back to the brownstone, already feeling the initial sickening effects of the poisoned cookies Krista had given him. He burst in, weak and disoriented, his vision blurring, to a horrifying scene. Krista was lunging at Amanda with a kitchen knife. "Krista!" he gasped, his words slurring as he stumbled. Amanda, terrified but fighting for her life against the woman who had been slowly setting her up, managed to wrestle with Krista. In the desperate, bloody struggle, Amanda, though wounded herself, plunged the knife into Krista. Blood. Everywhere. Krista collapsed, the life draining from her. Blake, succumbing to the poison, fell to his knees, watching his fiancée, the architect of his ruin, die. Amanda, bleeding from her own stab wound, managed to call 911. Police. Sirens. Flashing lights. It all blurred together for Blake before he lost consciousness. He was rushed to the hospital, barely clinging to life. Krista was dead. Amanda survived, her story one of a terrifying attack by her landlords. With Krista dead and Blake near death, the suicide note found in Blake's pocket seemed to seal the case. A tragic murder-suicide. But Blake survived. With the mastermind dead. What truths would finally surface from the wreckage of their lives? And who was Amanda Lenhart, the woman who stole Whitney's name, really? Weeks later, after Blake's miraculous recovery from the poisoning, the brownstone was quiet again. Krista, the woman he had loved, the woman who was actually the manipulative Whitney Cross, was gone. Her reign of terror over. Police tape was down. The bloodstains, mostly, were gone. But the house felt haunted by something worse. Emptiness. Blake tried to move forward, but questions gnawed at him. Who was Amanda Lenhart, the woman he'd known as Whitney, the tenant who had, in the end, saved his life by killing his attacker? Then, one morning, cleaning out the guest room Amanda had occupied before quietly disappearing, he found it, tucked behind a loose panel in the closet, a memory card. Tiny, black, ordinary. He almost threw it away, but something stopped him. He slid it into his laptop, and what he saw froze him in place. It was Amanda Lenhart sitting on the bed. No hoodie, no smile, just raw, broken silence. And then she spoke. She told a story, not about Blake, not about a generic abusive man. She spoke of Frank Gallo, the uncle of Jordan Gallo, the boy Krista had driven to suicide years ago. A man with connections, a man who never forgot a slight. She spoke of gambling debts, her own, crippling debts she couldn't repay. Frank Gallo had found her, the woman using Whitney Cross's missing identity. He offered her a deal. Her debts cleared if she did one thing: find and eliminate the real Whitney Cross, the girl who had destroyed his nephew. Amanda had stolen Whitney Cross's identity to hide, only to be found and coerced into becoming a killer. Her task? Infiltrate Blake's life, get close to Krista, and kill her. If anything happens to me, Amanda said on the video, eyes staring straight into the lens, it wasn't an accident. Frank Gallo made me do this. Then the screen went black. Blake sat there, frozen. The story he thought he understood. The story of his unraveling, of his fiancée's betrayal, suddenly wasn't the full story. Krista was a monster. But Amanda, the woman who had killed her, was a victim herself, forced into an impossible situation. They both wore masks. And Blake had slept between them, a pawn in their deadly games. The last thing on the card? A single photo. The one Krista had found in the drawer weeks ago. The one that made her suspect their tenant of being an imposter. Only this version was clearer. And in the center, no longer in the background, stood Amanda Lenhart, the Whitney from the diner, smiling, directly at the camera. A file photo, Blake realized. The one Frank Gallo's people must have used to identify Amanda, and the same photo the real Whitney Cross, as Krista, had used to recognize the woman who had stolen her identity when Amanda first applied for the room. It was how the real Whitney knew exactly who Amanda was from the very beginning. The Tenant isn't just about a stranger who moves in. It's about the walls we build and the truths we hide behind them. It's about how sometimes the most dangerous people don't break in. They're invited. And sometimes the person you invite in to save you from one monster is simply a different kind of monster, or a victim forced to become one. Blake, Amanda, Krista, victim, villain, witness. All three, all at once, in a twisted dance of deception and survival. So if you've ever thought about renting your spare room, think twice. You never really know someone. Not until the door is locked, the lights go out, and it's too late to ask why they're really here. If you enjoyed this immersive audiobook-style summary of The Tenant, don't forget to subscribe and join us next time for another full story, delivered right to your ears. And remember, just because someone seems normal doesn't mean they actually are.